So friends, we have discussed about interviews, we have discussed about group discussions. I have always promised that I will be discussing about the communication skills, of which the body language part, which are non-verbal, I have already discussed. And by now you must have understood what I wanted to communicate to you. Today I am going to discuss about another skill under that communication skill, that is a verbal communication. It is very important because our primary focus of this particular course is negotiation and marketing strategies, in which the soft skills to be used. Take me for granted, friends, that verbal communication skill is one of the most important skills. You may have some bit of deficiencies in other skills, doesn't matter, that can always be taken care of. The verbal communication skill, it comes from within, and when it comes from within and any one word said wrongly can make a lot of difference. Here I am going to cite one book, that is The Art of Conversation, which I have come across. I have gone through several books going through this research process, but one book, The Art of Conversation by Eric Watson, I recommend strongly. Please try to find out this book if you get it and read it extensively from first to last page. I will be borrowing lots of points from there. I will borrow the points, but I will put the examples forward with my own understanding and own experience. But this particular book is one of the gems. Here, the first important thing is art of speaking. Interestingly, a war can break just based on one wrong words uttered. There may be a lot of gestures, lot of signals which may be interpreted or misinterpreted, but a long many years relationship breaks maybe because of one sentence wrongly uttered at a wrong place to a wrong person and by a wrong person. So art of speaking is one of the very strong soft skill which you have to master. In case you find that you are not good at it, not that you are born with it, in schools we are taught. In schools, the teachers in our nursery level, in our primary level, even at the higher levels, we are taught how to speak. Even sometimes there are exercises through elocutions, through debates, through extempo debates, to impromptus, through just a minute. There are several ways by which we train ourselves in art of speaking. But here I will be highlighting the situations. There may be different situations. Actually, you may speak well, but there are different situations which you have to understand. Okay. Under this art of speaking, the first and foremost thing that comes here is confidence. When you are saying something to somebody, have confidence. Don't fumble, don't stammer, don't stutter. Don't even think that what you are saying, is it properly being said? What you want to say it. And if you really practice it the better way, then when you are speaking to somebody with confidence, then definitely you are saying the right thing in the right place. Sometimes some people who are using a slang against somebody, bad points, bad speaking, bad items, but yet doing it very confidently. That means they are trained to do it. They have practiced it several times. So confidence is the first thing you must have when you are speaking. Confidence does not come automatically. Confidence will come from your knowledge, from your experience, from your relationship, from your mental acumen, from your intellect, from your practices, even from your rehearsal. During play in dramatics, I have cited some time earlier that you will find that the actor is speaking continuously without any break. Sometimes I wonder, do they have so much of memory? Yes, they do have, because that's their practice. And the way they are saying, where they are acting, so tomorrow the same person will be acting in a different role with confidence, portraying a different character. So when you speak, the first and foremost thing in the art of speaking is the confidence. You must not lose confidence. You can always practice it with your friends. Command over language. In this, command over language is important when you are communicating to somebody. Quite often we find that we are limited, we are restricted when you are talking to a person from other language because we don't know the language. Since we don't know the language, we cannot communicate well. So command over language is very important, and these are taught, these are learned. There are several courses where spoken English is taught. Since English is an universal language all over the world accepted, in such cases people try to learn how to speak in English. That means when somebody is speaking, if he is speaking rightly, then his confidence is doubled. Somebody who has learned to speak but not as great as the other person, then definitely it will be showing in his lack of confidence. When he is speaking, you will find that he's thinking in his own mother tongue. Usually what happens when you are speaking in others' language, then in that case first what you do, within split second in your mind, you frame the sentence in your own mother tongue and then immediately translate in a language in which you are going to speak, and then you speak. There is a split second lag, and that lag is disastrous. So if suppose you have command over the language, you think in that particular language. You structure the whole thing what you want to say in that same language in your mind. Don't try to translate inside and then speak. Then comes intonation. Intonation is what? Intonation is ups and downs, soft and loud, such variations in this. Intonations are a kind of thing which you have to exercise when in which company you are speaking. In a group, in a party, if you speak in a very low voice, then nobody is going to hear. So you become loud. In a one-to-one conversation, if you suddenly become loud, then it becomes a negative thing. So intonation is the variations of the tones. Variation of the tones, variation of the stresses on the words, the way you are throwing this particular words to somebody. So these are the things which will be very, very important. Then comes the manners. The manners in speaking. You may be good in manners in terms of body language, but the manners is the etiquettes that you follow when you speak. Something what you should not say, even if you want to say. If you want to say that, how do you say? How do you be really respectful to another person? So manners is basically what are the social norms that they have dictated, that how you should speak to another person. See, there are diverse situations I will discuss in which you will find that you may be speaking to a stranger, you may be speaking to a friend, you may be speaking to your enemies. During negotiations, you may be speaking to somebody who is trying not to give you the job. I don't call them enemies, of course, but it's a person who is against your opponents, against you. Maybe that the two parties are trying to vie for the same job, and there's a three-party discussion, and then they are trying to find out whom they should give the job. That means now you have three parties. It's one yourself, the other party who is also vying for this job, and there's third party who is trying to give a job to one of these two. That means every time the manners, the respect to others when you are speaking is essential. The pleasantness, how softly, how nicely, how smoothly, how comfortably you are speaking. This pleasant is basically the way you speak. Other person finds it very pleasing. You can even say a very costly words in a pleasant manner. Very interesting. This is the art. Why it is called art? Because it cannot be really drafted that do this, don't do this, and don't do this. It's an art somebody generates when he's speaking. Interesting thing is, when you are speaking to somebody, you are not really prepared. It's not a speech that you have prepared. And even if you have prepared the speech, take it for granted that when you are in front of the mob, in front of the public, in front of the person where you are going to give this particular speech, you might find what you rehearsed, what you memorized, it will keep on getting changed. It will get changed instantaneously depending on the reactions that you receive during your speech. So the point is, all said and done, it should be well-mannered and pleasant. There's a difference between speaking and speech making. See, just now I said that, okay, you are a speaker and you want to speak to a mob. When you are speaking to a mob, when you don't see eye to eye and you are just looking at the whole mob as if it's a house where you are trying to say what you want to say, then it is no longer really a speaking. You are giving a speech. Giving a speech which you are rehearsed with, you have formulated before, you know what are the points you need to communicate to this group. You don't even cross-check who received your messages, who did not. Your job is to speak, and when you speak to a mob without any kind of reactions received or communicated back, that is basically a speech. So speech is one-sided, and speaking not necessarily is one-sided. Speaking means you are now communicating to somebody. You are verbally communicating to somebody in which you are also expecting a kind of response. So speaking and speech making, be very clear about this. Now, why I am putting this particular points here before a very serious discussion that I will make on negotiations. Negotiations is a game. Negotiations is a game where body language definitely will play a role, but the maximum amount of role that will play is based on your art of speaking. How do you verbally communicate? So I'll come to this after I discuss about the entire verbal communication aspects, then I'll come to the negotiations. Okay. Now, situation is, what is a conversation? See, art of speaking is how you speak, but conversation is slightly different. You stand alone and keep on speaking. You stand alone, speak to nobody. Nobody means there is nobody to listen to. You are just speaking. That's not a speech. You are speaking. But you are communicating something to a mob in front of a class, in front of a big house in a workshop. You are the keynote speaker. You are speaking. Basically, you are giving a speech. If suppose that particular speech is now being reacted to, means you are now cross-checking. Have you understood? Do you have any points to ask? Gradually the speech becomes a kind of, a conversation. So in the workshops you will find the most often the key speaker speaks to 100 person in the audience, and then they are going to make their points forward. Don't have much opportunity for responding to individual queries or clarifications. Okay, so the conversation, my first point that is written in this conversation is it's a game play. The whole set of conversation that you are going to make, let me always say with respect to our focus on the negotiations, okay? But here there will be lots of situations where it's not negotiating at all. But however, always try to keep at the back of your mind as if you are trying to understand what a conversation is based on what is the negotiation about, okay? Conversation is a game play, and game is not like solitaire. The game is like a thing which you have to play with somebody else. Here in the conversation is when you are conversing with somebody. That means you are saying something, you are also receiving something, listening to something. So this give and take will keep on going. So it's a game play. In that game play, consider that it is played between, say, two persons or more than two persons. That means here it's you are speaking to another person. So it's a pairwise gameplay. But there may be a third person who is also party to the conversation. Now it's a multi-party conversation. And there may be 15 persons now discussing about something, what it is said in our group discussion in GD, 10 to 12, 15 persons. Okay, now it's a multi-persons. So it can be, a conversation will only get generated when there are more than one person. That means more than you. You are speaking. You are a speaker, but there is somebody else who are listening and also saying. Okay, so the game which has to be two or more persons involvement, and it has to be efficient. The conversation is a game which has to be efficient. There cannot be something like speaking rubbish. No, that is not a conversation. Okay, it may be people are verbally exchanging something or the other, but it has to be efficient. It has to be lively. There has to be a kind of people are involved in it. You cannot have a conversation or play a game like, say, in another person who is listening to you, simply listening to you, are not conversing. That means he is a listener. So it's a one-sided speaking that you are doing, but it's not a conversation. And during negotiations, conversation is the point from where it generates. Okay, it should generate pleasure, means people should enjoy. If people are not enjoying this game, then it's no longer a conversation. There are certain rules. The rules is very simple, that when you are speaking, give an opportunity to somebody else also to speak. Then only it's a conversation. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. You put somebody in front of you, maybe by virtue of your authority, and you keep on speaking. The other person has to listen. Then it's not a conversation. Conversation, you are saying something, allowing him to say something. So this rule has to be followed. And in this rule, I'll just put few points which are coming in my mind right now. In this particular rule, there should be almost equal share of time and equal share of opportunity of expression, okay? And there has to be a time frame. That means it has to be fixed within a time frame. You cannot just keep on conversing hours after hours, then it's no longer a good game play. Since it's a game is always time bound. Within that particular time when everybody is speaking, then everybody is being assessed that how are they responding to this game play. Then the second point is brevity. Brevity is crispness, the shortness. In the brevity, the suggestion is be brief when you're conversing. If you're lecturing, then you have a set which you have to communicate. If you're giving a speech, then you have a set of items that you have to speak. But when you're conversing, then try to be brief. And more you are brief, I'm not saying that you become dumb. More you become brief, you become to the point. Because you have to express something, you have to communicate something, and if you are becoming brief, you become to the point. And if you are becoming to the point and you are becoming brief and you have a time frame within which the conversation go on, naturally time is getting shared. If there are 5 persons conversing within half an hour time, then almost try to see that they are equally shared. If suppose that one person is not speaking, then you can take it for granted that he is not taking part in the conversation. He's a good listener. I said in the group discussion, if you remember, that there are somebody who by virtue of their habits don't speak much, and he is finding it very difficult to penetrate in the whole discussion or initiate or put forward his own points. In such cases, the evaluator coaxes him, pokes him, that you have not said anything, do you have something to say? That means you are now bringing him within the conversation. Okay? Now, so brevity is important. Then comes the consistency. In this, consistency is very important. Consistency of content, consistency in quality, consistency in continuity. There should be coherence in it, and there should be emotional balance. See, this is very interesting. Let me cite an example. You are conversing on a current affair, say political affair. You are conversing on a political affair within a given time, and suddenly you jump into your conversation, rolls into the recent game that you have watched in the TV, or maybe something happened somewhere very close to your house. That means there is no consistency of content. So you are switching or jumping from one to another, to the next, to the next. When you are having a content inconsistency, then it's not a conversation. It is okay, exchange of points and such. Of course, it is certainly I'll call conversation because people are participating in it, but there has to be a consistency of it. And when it comes to business discussion, when it comes to analysis of the joint opportunity or joint venture, when you are talking or conversing for negotiation, when you are conversing with your friends, when you are conversing with your family members, there has to be content very discreetly decided. This content deficiencies or continuity breaks, it comes from one of the conversationalists. What happened is, like say there are 5 members in a family and you are conversing on a particular topic, and suddenly when this was not concluded, and now everybody has agreed, okay, now we have finished this, we can start with another topic. Within that, somebody else throws in another topic, another content, and that disturbs or jeopardizes the conversation that was going on. That is not fair. That's not a good game. The game, like say you are playing football, suddenly somebody comes with a bat and starts playing cricket with it, it's like as bad as that. No, it has to be, content should be consistent and your quality has to be consistent. You cannot have conversation in which, say, everybody is speaking, suddenly one person becomes emotionally imbalanced and he shouts. His voice becomes louder. He starts speaking filthy languages. He starts, even if he is saying rightfully something, maybe he is right and the rest of the persons are wrong, but he is saying in such a manner which, it just rejects all manners, all etiquettes, and brings non-pleasantriness, unhappiness, unpleasantness. Okay, so it's not consistent. It has to be consistent. So what is important here is you have to have emotional balance when you are having a conversation. Then comes cooperation. Here, since conversation is between 2 or more persons, even a pair, let's say You and your friend, you are conversing, you are discussing about certain issues. Okay? In such cases, you must have mutual respects. You should respect one another, and then you keep on saying. So you don't become non-dominating, you don't become dominating. So what is that cooperation? Cooperation is you are non-dominating, you are showing a mutual respect, and now you are conversing. Then only it will become a very pleasant conversation in which several things will come out for benefits of both of you. But if it is non-cooperating, that means you are now fighting. Conversation is also through fights. Means you are accusing somebody, he is accusing you back. Maybe both of you are right. But the thing is, in that there is no mutual respect in it. So it is a conversation, literally maybe, but the thing is, it's not a good conversation. So what happens is, in the whole conversation, there is something called good conversation, something called bad conversation. So conversation is then, if I try to summarize before going for further points, that okay, it's a game that has to be played between two or more persons very efficiently. It has to end up in a particular content, to a conclusion, in a conclusion within a time frame, and everybody getting an opportunity to speak to a certain extent, being brief and to the point, and the content had been consistent and with a quality, high quality. So there is a continuity of the topics or content that you are discussing. So it is coherent, and everybody is supposed to be within the emotional balance, and there is a mutual respect in it. Okay? If that is true, then that comes the effect. What happens is, when you are speaking, when you are conversing with somebody with all those points which I have said, and then you will find it will give you a pleasing results. And pleasing result means after conversation of half an hour or 1 hour or 2 hours, you set the time. Basically what happens is, during sales, let me tell you, I will just give you such certain examples. If suppose you are trying to find out your life partner, whom you might convert her to your spouse, to be your spouse. Now in such cases, how much time will you give? You decide. You mutually decide how much time frame that you want to have for conversation. But there, I won't use the term called game. I won't use that term because the game sounds negative. You are not playing a game against your, somebody whom you are trying to consider or select as your spouse. But the thing is, here it's basically still, it's a word game. Both of you are speaking to each other with mutual respects, and what is the content? Content is thinking about the future, thinking about the current scenarios, trying to explore each other, trying to know each other's characteristics. If you find that such couple are discussing, conversing, and one person only speaking, another person is very quiet, then it's not a conversation, and naturally it's not going to result in a healthy effects. So effect has to be very pleasing, and it must have a positive outcome. That is a conversation, a gameplay which starts with a positive note, with a positive intention, and ends with a positive results. This is what is a conversation. But here, when you go for negotiation, your conversation starts. When I'll talk about the negotiation, you will see, I'll give you a clue how to start it, because the conversation has to start. Who starts? How do you start? And then how do you carry on with it? And where during negotiation, it is only a play of words. You are saying, you are listening. The other person is listening and then saying something. So this back and forth keeps on going on. So here, conversation, as we consider that it's a gameplay, then other points within the same thing is like there should be elation. Elation means here, when you are conversing with somebody, you feel happy and you get excited. But I'll tell you, you feel happy. Happiness is a must. But if you become overexcited, then you'll find gradually you are likely to be drifted from the content. It happens in the friendly conversations where there are 5-6 friends, the college mates or schoolmates, they are meeting together and trying to discuss, have a conversation for their pleasure. You'll find that maybe happiness is coming too fast because they are elated. And quickly, if they are elated, then also their excitement also goes in the exponential curve. And if the excitement comes to such level, then they start losing all the other good protocols. Then in such cases, what happens is suddenly we will find that the content is becoming inconsistent. Okay? So this is how you have to see it. And then comes enlightenment. In the enlightenment, basically, is the conversation should give you something to gain. That means you learn, you gain, then it's a conversation. Then comes the give and take. Here, basically, the back and forth discussion you are going to do, back and forth communication you are going to do. So, where both of you must communicate. So, when both of you are communicating, you are contributing to each other, and that means the conversation basically will be a good conversation if suppose there is a back and forth communication and both are feeling happy, and that means it is contributing to each other. Then comes the participation. Here, the thing is, during conversation, every person who is party to the conversation must participate. There cannot be a silent participant. If a person is silent participant, that means he is there in the group but not speaking, then he is not really a party to the conversation, because he hasn't expressed his viewpoints, whether he agrees to the other points or he has something to say in exchange of that or contrary to that. Okay? So, during participation, there are certain things which you have to follow, that there should be no monopoly. That means one person is putting his points forward and trying to make everybody take for granted his points. No, there should be no monopoly, there should be no silence and no withdrawal or withdrawn. In a conversation, everybody has to speak something or the other. Okay, means it may be such that because of the characteristics or the art of speaking, one person has spoken or he is speaking a little more in content or time consumption, all right, but still there is no chance a person will remain silent in the whole conversation, then it is not. And if it is a pair-wise conversation, then another person is only listening and not speaking, then it is not a conversation. It is only a flow of words from another. And then comes togetherness. That means here, this togetherness is important. Here, conversation can be at different level, at different diverse situations. When you consider the conversation has a togetherness, when you find that it has all the members who are participating in the conversation, they are irrespective of their age, sex or class, all of them are of one mind in discussing on that content, then there is a togetherness. If suppose one person by virtue of hierarchy is saying something to another person, but they are not in one same mind, all mindset for the same topic, same content, then it is not a conversation. It is only it's just speaking to somebody, trying to say what he wants to say. Then comes a point which is situations. There are diverse situations. I will just try to highlight. See, when you converse, various situations, you are conversing amongst acquaintances. That means conversation is going on amongst known person. This acquaintance does not mean your friend. Acquaintance is somebody who lives in the same community, you know him or her, you have met him earlier and you just have communication or conversation with him. In such cases, the pleasantry, the gestures, pleasant gestures, what is accepted by the social norms is more favorable. It's something like in the morning when you have come out of your house, your next door neighbor or maybe a neighbor within that neighborhood is passing by and you say good morning and he says good morning. You have conversed. You said good morning, how do you do? He said good morning, fine, thank you, I am doing well. These are conversations, and there you may also decide to speak a little farther and say that good morning, how is the weather? What is your plan today? Have you heard about that thing that happened last night? That means general topics he is generating. This is one situation, and in such cases it is not confidential. So, amongst the acquaintances when you converse, then it is non-confidential, and generally for time killing that you are doing this conversation. So, what happens is such situation when you are conversing amongst the acquaintances, you will find that they will be mostly for time killing or for pleasantries. Then comes among equal and unequal. Amongst equal and unequal, so in such cases what happens is, if there is a class divisions, whether it is a civilian, whether it is corporate, whether it is business, whether it is family relations, whether it is associations, if the conversation can be amongst equal and unequal, like in civilian, It's somebody who is senior speaking to another person. You think about the army. The boss says something and that is being communicated to the next level, conversed. Then that person speaks to the lower level, lower rank person. So, and conversed. Okay, this will go on. So, always there could be a situation where equals and unequals are speaking. In these cases where the boss is saying something and you are trying to respond, it's unequal. But what about your family? In your family, your father says something and you are also saying something, though you are not equal in the age, but the thing is you are a family. And within that family when you are speaking. So there are, it all depends that the conversation will take its undertone based on what is the situation. Are you speaking, is this conversation between equals or is this conversation between unequals? See, a boy speaks to his father before going out from the house and there's a conversation, you just listen to that conversation. And then the same boy goes out and meets his classmates on the road and then he starts another conversation, just listen to that conversation. Okay? Now, original conversation was between slightly unequal, that means a father conversing with the son. Rather, let's take it this way, the son conversed with his father, unequal, and the moment he comes out of the house and speaks to his friend and converses, it's now amongst equal. So the language will change, the mood will change, the topics will change, the time will change, the elation level will change, the excitement level will change, the communication level will change. So this is a very interesting phenomena that happens. Okay, among friends, basically it's very easy conversation. You don't have to be really so sensitive, so judgmental that what you are saying to your friends, what you are conversing. It's most often on the current affairs. Current affairs means that too, it's maybe a context related. Like say school friends always talk about the schools. Office colleagues when they converse, they are equal. They will be always talking about the office politics, office system. But the moment the boss calls one of the colleagues and speaks, then it is amongst the unequal. The boss speaks to your colleague. And now that colleague comes out and speaks to you, your situation now got changed. Not friends, but amongst equal. And the friends is whom you trust, whom you think is your friend. And then the conversation becomes very easy. The topics are also selected accordingly. There's more freedom of speech. You don't have to be really so careful about what you are speaking. And then the volumes also keep on rising. Your tone also keeps on changing. And your excitement also comes forward, and there's a purpose. See, when you talk to your friends and converse with your friends, basically the purpose is for happiness. You want to feel happy. You want to communicate with your friends and you want to feel happy. So among friends, and then comes among hosts and guests. Among hosts and guests is very, very interesting. You have gone to somebody's house on invitation. You are the guest and that person is the host. The whole conversation will have a different kind of flair. The host is supposed to welcome you, and you should be also reciprocating by giving an expression that you are happy to be with them. You are happy to receive the invitation, and you are being very happy to reach there. Okay? And the same host, when you are coming out of the house after the program is over, and then you say that, okay, why don't you come to my house tomorrow? There's a role reversal now. You become the host, he becomes the guest. And tomorrow, you are going to welcome him at your doorstep. And he is going to reciprocate by saying that he is thankful that you have invited him. He is happy to be at your doorstep. And now he would be happy to spend some time with you. Whole role reversal will happen. So it is basically what situation you are in. Accordingly, the whole thing has to be said. But there are certain protocols. There are certain decorums. There are certain disciplines. There are certain gestures, body gestures. All these will start playing together. Okay, then comes here basically amongst the host and guest is a pleasantries, it's a courtesy, it's a discipline, it's a body language which is going to make sense. And then comes among males and females. That means I'm talking about is amongst sexes, say amongst opposite sexes, different sexes. See, when there are two girls, they will speak in one language, converse in one type. If there are two boys, they'll speak in a different type. If there's one of that boys from this group and one of the girls from this group now conversing, the whole game plan will change. Here in this, certain things which are very, very important. There has to be etiquettes, because a person is speaking to the opposite sex. So there are certain decorums, there are certain limitations. Not everything can be said, not everything should be said, even if it can be said. Even if you wish to say, you cannot say. So there has to be etiquettes, there has to be discipline, there has to be a domain of topics. You cannot have open topics, open domain, anything that you want to say. No, you cannot do that. There has to be limits up to which you should be able to converse. And there has to be proper body language, gestures, there has to be proper signals, and there has to be a distance. This is how the whole ball game of a conversation is. It's not easy, I'll tell you, it's not easy. Not that every time we can learn it. The thing is, now I'm repeating, among males and females or amongst opposite sexes, etiquettes, discipline, domain, limits, body language, signals and distances. This has to be very clearly understood and maintained. Okay? And then comes among strangers, most dangerous. See, the thing is now, why we said dangerous? Most often we have taught our children not to talk to strangers. That means not to converse with a stranger because you don't know the person. Here what happens is that usually the children are highly vulnerable when they are speaking to a stranger because children are not yet mature enough to understand the intention of the stranger. That's why we always say summarily, don't talk to strangers. And child follows, very, very ritually and says sometime, my mom said not to talk to strangers. Or I won't respond to you because you are a stranger. These things happen. Okay? Because any stranger not necessarily would be a bad person, but God knows. If he is a bad person, if the intention is foul, and then in such cases the child will be vulnerable. That's why among strangers, how do you communicate or how do you converse? If you are a child, first thing is don't communicate. And if you are sensible, if you are mature enough, then start a casual discussion among strangers. You can talk to a stranger, converse with a stranger for information. And it should be very well balanced. It should be reserved. You don't have to speak much about yourself and your family and your background and your father's bank balance. No, your properties, what you inherited, what is likely to be your future plans. Don't have to. Among strangers, you be very, very reserved, and it should be in a low volume. You don't shout at, don't be loud. The stranger is a person who is respectful. So you give her respect and then speak only up to a limit, but there has to be a code of conduct because you don't know the person. Okay? So when you are talking to the strangers, most often I have found that I always feel very free to talk to strangers. I can tell you, I have never had any difficulty while talking to the stranger because quite often I have found out informations from the strangers only, and it's a good skill if you really have it. Good skill that you penetrate through a stranger to find out more and more about it. Quite often landing up in a new place, I always found out all the details about that place from the stranger. So I have one clue for this. How do I do it? If you meet a stranger, then have a pleasantry exchanges and show respect and show compassion to the person. You will find that moment you show compassion and the respect, the person also he becomes very, very, he has a humility. He expresses humility. Then he starts helping you. And then he starts giving you more information, which becomes a sort of, boon to you, a blessing to you that you are now learning, which you probably wouldn't have learned from anywhere else or any other references. So the thing is, if you follow the code of conduct and if you respect him and maintain your volume quite sober and low, and be friendly, then in such cases the strangers are one of the greatest persons who can help you. Other sets which are coming within it is like at parties. See, at parties what happens is the conversation during the parties are essentially for enjoyment. There you break certain rules, certain protocols and certain disciplines and also certain behavioral disciplines, conducts, sometime. But well, I would still say that at parties, since the objective is to enjoy, so enjoyment and the fun and the group participation, group activities, inviting other people to join the group in conversation, so these are very, very essential and it's a part of it. But mind it, the parties are temporary. When you are conversing with your friends, the friendship is going to go long, but the parties are only decided from this time to this time, say 2 hours, midnight, whatever. Some party has a fixed time, it's temporary. You are allowed to converse in the mood or in the situation of the parties only during that time. You may talk, you may cut jokes with your boss during the party, but the moment the party is over, you are now again followed by protocol. So jokes and anecdotes, these are a part of it, but do anything, there should be dignity. In the party, you should not lose any kind of dignity in terms of your speaking, what you are saying, or even in terms of your body language or gestures. Never lose dignity. Quite often, you lose your friends, lose your family friends after one party. Because during the party, if there is any kind of loose talks, if there is any kind of loose gestures or indignified gestures, you lose that family forever. So here, this situation is very important. Between two, here it is very intimate, very sincere, low volume and structured. I gave this example before. Whether it is two male, two female, a male and a female, the purpose is for anything, like for friendship, the purpose is for deciding about the future course of actions, for getting married, whatever. But the situation is, it's intimate. This intimacy, what you have between two, don't try to show this when you are more than two. That is not required. If you are not, unless you are conniving, like say you are making a strategy where 3 or 4 persons are conversing, in such cases that intimacy cannot be compared with this intimacy. There it is not intimacy, it's only trying to keep the things within a center and so that it doesn't flow out. That is not really intimacy. Intimacy is, there is an emotional intimacy, there is a sort of, to a certain extent, physical intimacy. You want to be close to each other, you want to speak to each other in such a way that others don't hear you, but you are speaking. Okay. Now, in a group, when you are speaking, you are open, you are playful, you are high volume, you are unstructured and confidence. So it is, here you see between two it's structured, but in a group it is unstructured. You are open. Any topic can be generated and you keep on speaking. But between two, when you are conversing, you are being very, very structured in that. You know what you want to say, what you want to converse about. Then in business, essential. In business, when you are conversing, it must have a purpose. You must know the purpose of the business. It should be very focused. And it is for, like say, for negotiation. You are negotiating for a contract. You are negotiating for an assignment. You are negotiating for funding. You are negotiating for exchange, whatever. You are conversing, very focused, very, very focused. And you should be frank, you should be sincere, and there should be mutual gain in such conversation. Then comes in easy or difficult situation. There could be a situation which is easy situation and there could be a difficult situation. I'll give an example. Say if it is an easy situation, that is a normal situation, that means everybody is healthily participating in the conversation. It can be informal, it can be free flowing. If it's a difficult situation, in such cases you have to be formal, you have to be speculative, you have to be calculative. That is a difficult situation. You might have to sometimes be arrogant during conversation. What is a difficult situation? In a group we are discussing about one particular topic and one person suddenly becomes very arrogant. Then you just retaliate with the arrogance. That's what is common tendency. Your first conversational trick would be that calm him down and bring him to the point and to the soberness, and then say your point. If suppose after some time, when you have lost that he has become more and more arrogant, maybe that your arrogance will come in a different language in a conversation, but you are going to make him calm down through that or shut him up. Then comes on happy or serious occasions. In unhappy occasions like marriage, during marriage, if you in your house, if you find that lots of guests and relatives have come, in such cases conversation character is different. Nobody is very serious. Everybody is freely, happily talking. Everybody is sharing their own experiences, trying to see their friends or relatives after a long time, becoming excited and elated. So the conversation is in one tone. But how about in serious occasions like funerals? The way you met yesterday, you met your friend in one of the marriage and you had one kind of conversation. The same person you are meeting the next day for a funeral function. Will you speak in the same language? Will the conversation be in the similar tone? No. If you have met the same person in a religious institution like a temple or a church or say mosque, wherever, will you speak in the same tone what you have followed in parties? No. That means every occasion will have certain decorum, and that you got to follow. Suppose you have gone to a workshop where you are supposed to exchange knowledge only. Should you be all cracking jokes with your friends and your say other hostel mates just because you had the similar kind of thing last night? No. This is what is important, friend. Diverse situations must be understood. So when you are conversing, diverse situation has to be understood. So what you do is, first of all, you make yourself competent in art of speaking, and then you judge in different such kind of situations, as I said, how you should communicate. Accordingly, you will modulate your own conversation styles, and there is very difficult to say you do these things. Very difficult, because every individual is experienced in a different manner. Every individual has different kind of thinking, but the situations don't change. So here I stop at this particular point to give you an idea that there's an art of conversation, art of speaking, and there's a diverse situation. Next, I'll continue with the other points, that what is a good conversation and what is a bad conversation, in my next lecture. Thank you.